I'm Chris Cuomo. We're really starting to get the picture of what went down in Oklahoma. The floodgates of information are opening in the case of these murdered moms. We have the lawyer for the grandmother, Tiffany Adams, accused of planning their murder. This is a first-degree murder allegation, Was this really about the custody of the grandkids or something darker? Then there was this wild scene in the courtroom in Oklahoma as the four people accused of killing Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly, the two moms, appeared for the first time. It was crazy shouting, family members trying to get at them, having to be restrained. NewsNation was there. We have a reporter live with what went down. Now, Tiffany Adams' lawyer, that's the grandmother, represented her in the custody case. He is the best mind on what is going on inside her head. His name is Stephen Jones, and he joins us now. Counsel, thank you for taking the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
First, what was your reaction to these allegations? Would you have ever imagined that your client could have murderous intentions related to these kids and their mom?
I could not imagine it. It was a shock to find out she was charged.
When you look through the documents, counsel, and the recitation of what happened from the 16-year-old witness specifically, it is a pretty compelling narrative that your client was absolutely involved in this and it was planned. How do you understand that?
Well, to be fair, this has been a contentious custody and guardianship matter. And a lot of temporary orders have been entered by the court, but no final orders having been entered. It's gone on too long and it's too acrimoniously. Now, Ms. Adams is a well-known member of the community. She's in the farming and ranching business. Her family is pioneers. She's on the board of the county hospital. And she's a farmer rancher. She has strong feelings. The children's mother and father were never married, so we have this custody battle. The father is serving a time in prison, so he's not available. And she asked the court in a petition for guardianship to be made the guardian of the children, right. In other words, custody. Now, what brought this on was the issue of temporary visitation and whether it would be
supervised or unsupervised.
Yes.
Right, but I get all that, and I get that it was ugly, counsel. What I'm saying is, did you ever get any indication that your client was willing, desperate enough to do anything violent to the mother just to keep custody of the kids?
I did not.
When you heard that, you say she's a member of the community, she's well known. Did you know that she was a part of an organization called God's Misfits that's supposedly this kind of anarchic organization that's anti-government, anti-rules?
I did not know that, but I'm not surprised. Cimarron County and much of the Panhandle is very individualistic, independent, mostly farmers and town suppliers, and very, very conservative. And I've represented people in the Panhandle over 50 years, and every time I go out there, I hear about a new group that doesn't believe in your dollar bill or other things. And that just goes on in Cimarron County. It's a small, isolated county, looks to Amarillo, shops Amarillo, watches Amarillo television, and they keep to themselves. But since 1960, they have changed politically, very evangelical, very conspiratorial in the sense of not trusting the government. Now, that's probably half the county. The other half of the county is traditional farmers and ranchers,
right,
who pay their bills and participate in community life. So
well, this is the first half, it seems, we're dealing with here, counsel. Did you ever pick up anything in her that would have indicated she had this kind of character, that she could plan a hit basically on the mother of her grandchildren? I mean, we have some context here. Her own son, who's in rehab, I didn't understand him to be in prison. I thought he was in rehab, says that she was threatening him and saying that he better put his name on the things that she tells him to. I mean, she sounds like a mob boss more than a grandmother. You didn't pick up any of that in her.
I did not. And the reason I did not is because there's an element that has not been considered here. The Kansas Department of the Protection of Children and the county sheriff in Hugoton, Kansas, conducted a 27-page review of the allegations that Mrs. Butler's 18-year-old half-brother had sexually violated not only the two children here, but his own brother, plus others.
Right.
That report exists. I can assure you it's on the prosecutor's desk and on whoever represents her now. That was a very serious allegation.
Sure.
And Mrs. Adams' position was that Mrs. Butler didn't believe that her brother could do that.
Right.
Even though the department found that he could. And so for her to have visitation without supervision was dangerous to the children. And the judge has already found that there was probable cause to believe that this boy was a sexual predator and had attacked her children. Now, her son, and let's face it, they're estranged. These two people, the mother and father, were never married.
Right.
They're marginal in the economy, although the son has tried to turn himself around. And the allegations, every allegation that could be made is theirs. But the fact is, I've read the report. I know what it says.
Right. I believe that. I believe that the allegations for probable cause, as we both know, you being a much more veteran, officer of the court than I am, but probable cause is a very low standard. It was early on in the review. But even if all the allegations were true, the idea that the rational remedy, counsel, is to plan a hit on the mother and the person who's there to provide guidance, absenting someone that you like, right? Because there was another woman who was supposed to be there that the grandmother allegedly told not to come, and then murder them and bury them doesn't seem to be the right remedy for the best interests of the child.
No, and that's the state's case. If what you just said is true, then we have a horrible homicide in which two people were ambushed that were coming to pick up one of them's child. And it's Gothic. It's something out of the Bates Motel. And it's a terrible thing. Whoever is responsible for it, it is shocking. There's no question about that.
I think that, the most surprising thing to me, especially this, and then I'll let you go, and I appreciate your time, Mr. Jones, is that you could know somebody through the course of this and be completely shocked that she had this level of animus towards the mother, that you never saw any trace of that.
I did not. I saw eccentricity. I saw Cimarron County individualism and independence, but I didn't see the prospect of homicide.
Stephen Jones, I appreciate you very much. I know that you're recovering from a procedure. I wish you the best, and we're a call away if you want to provide any future insight as this case goes forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Very important context there. So at least now we have an idea of what was in the accused's mind, right? She probably believed the allegations that the birth mother's brother, half-brother, whatever he is, may have done something to the kids. But how do you get from that to let's kill the mom and this other lady and bury them in the backyard? That is bizarre. So was the scene in court today. NewsNation senior correspondent Brian Enton was there. We've been doing this a long time. He says he experienced things today he has never experienced before. Thank you for being with us. I also heard that the big guest you had in the car with you wound up getting sacked over talking to you. Take us through all of it.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second, Chris. First of all, you're right. I mean, the court experience today, I've never really seen anything like it. Very small courthouse outside. They had snipers up on the roof. You get in the parking lot, they wand you down with one of those metal detectors that they use their hand with. I couldn't even bring my hoodie in, no electronics. You go inside, and they had the back, very, very small courtroom. The family members of the victims were in the back of the courtroom, the last two rows, about 24 of them. And when they brought those suspects in one by one, they were shackled. Some of the family members were saying things to the suspects, not shouting, but talking loudly, and the judge sort of allowed it during the actual hearing. When Cole Trumbley came in, they called him a bastard. When Tad Cullum came in, they said that he was a sorry-ass piece of you-know-what. And then when Grandma Tiffany came in, they called her an effing B-word. This was all during the hearing. And then it was Veronica's dad that actually had to be held back, restrained by other family members, because he was trying to lunge at the grandma during the hearing. And things just sort of proceeded on like it was all normal, but it was really emotionally charged, Chris. As for the judge that we had on last night, the judge from another county who knew one of the suspects and knew about God's misfits, he got fired today after doing the interview with us. There he is right there. Basically, he said he was appointed by the city council, and they called him in and forced his resignation. They weren't happy that he was talking about any of this. Kind of just goes to the point. People around here are very intimidated by these suspects, by all of it. They're powerful. I heard the lawyer just now talk about, cattle ranchers. She was on the hospital board. They own thousands of acres of land, and they weren't happy that the council wasn't happy that judge spoke to us yesterday, Chris.
Brian, quickly. What was your take on her demeanor? I'm just watching the perp walk, and they all seem pretty calm walking in, but sometimes people betray their emotions once they're inside and they're hearing the reality from the judge. What did you see and hear in the grandmother's demeanor?
She was totally calm. She didn't look back at the family members who were there. She didn't say a word. I don't know why I noticed this. She had this very, very tightly braided French braid. My producer, Allison, noticed. She said, that's a really interesting French braid. Her hair was braided really tight. And she just looked forward. She said she was going to hire her own private attorney, which is no surprise because she's got lots of money. But she showed no emotion at all.
That's the scariest, isn't it? When they're that cool with this kind of set of accusations coming, and her knowing that 16-year-old told the cops the whole story and that they're lining it up. Brian Enton, thank you very much. This is either going to be a real wild ride or they're going to cop a plea and it's going to be over real quick. We'll see which way it goes. All right, let's take a break. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. Crazy how this woman wound up doing something. I bet you they wind up making the case in the name of love of the kids. Crazy what humans are capable of. Up next, speaking of what we're capable of, Donald Trump is sitting in a court. Rosie O'Donnell is coming on the show to tell you she knew this day was coming. And she wants to remind of what happened with her and Trump many years ago. That was a window, she says, into exactly who he is now. A big brush up that she had with Trump that almost cost her relationship with Barbara Walters. Next. Perspective. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, especially where former President Donald Trump is involved, right? Now, he has been picking fights that are some kind of article of convenience or advantage for him for a long time, right? And he's been working towards the division in this country. He's definitely part of the dynamic. A lot of people have kind of parted ways over feelings about this. But you know what you don't know about Trump? This is new for the country. It's not new for him. In fact, according to a new book, back in 2006, Trump was doing the same thing, ruining the working and personal relationship between Rosie O'Donnell and her idol, Barbara Walters. Remember, they were both members of The View. Rosie only wound up being there a year, would come back a few years later for a run. It all started when Rosie went at Trump on air after Trump offered to give the winner of Miss USA, a pageant he owned, a second chance. Remember, he was Miss USA? And retain her crown after she got caught partying in New York. Remember this?
So Donald Trump is in the news again. He held a press conference to announce whether or not she was going to retain her crown. And then she started to cry.
She did.
Going, I just want to thank Donald who's giving me a second chance.
And it was brilliant.
And there he is, hair looping, going, everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm going to give her a second chance. He's the moral authority. Left the first wife, had an affair. Left the second wife, had an affair. Had kids both times, but he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds in America. Donald, sit and spin, my friends. I don't enjoy him. No, he inherited a lot of money. Wait a minute. And he's been bankrupt so many times where he didn't have to pay. He didn't pay off the people he owed.
They put you on a payment plan.
Get ready. This is going to be good.
Listen, here's something that everybody should know right now. If you think he's going to take a punch and not give one back, it doesn't matter if it's coming from a woman. And sure enough, Trump was watching that day in Trump Tower. Somebody told him. He phoned into ABC threatening to sue the network. So now I'm laughing, right? But Barbara Walters wasn't laughing, okay? Donald Trump represented something that was very important to Barbara, okay? Titan that she was, and her legacy should be long and strong. He had social standing in New York City. So she called Trump to calm him down. Now, according to this open letter Trump got published in the Post, Walters, he says, called Rosie a pig and said that she was going to get her fired. Now, Barbara Walters said that never happened. He called her a liar. A new book says Rosie felt so betrayed by Walters that it prompted her to quit the show just a few months later. Rosie O'Donnell wanted to come on. She's a friend, actress, activist, and has perspective on where we are right now and how we got here. Rosie, it's good to have you.
It's good to have you. I didn't want to come on. You asked me to come on.
I definitely, well, you could have said no.
Which I didn't even know.
You could have said no.
But I wouldn't say no to you, Chris. I love your show and I love you, so I would never say no.
Thank you. I wanted you on for perspective. You've known and felt the same way about him forever. And I'll get into the drama back then. But you say that you are not surprised by anything that's happening right now. You see it as a day that was inevitable. Why?
Well, he is a cruel, criminal, and mentally unstable man. And Duty to Warn was a book that came out when he was first in office. Psychiatrists across the country who don't ever really diagnose people that they don't serve personally came together and made a book, Duty to Warn, to tell the world what a narcissistic, mentally ill person he is. And I think he's the worst thing that ever happened to the United States, and his cruelty knows no bounds. And when he is upset and humiliated and embarrassed, he has no control, and he goes apeshit. Can I say that?
Yeah, you just did. So, Rosie, let me ask you, what was more surprising to you? That even though you made jokes about him, that a man would go after you the way he did and call you the things he did, or that Barbara seemed to want to keep some distance from it and want you to be careful about the situation?
You know, it's very interesting. I expect nothing but the lowest bar for Donald Trump. And, you know, every single day he just grants my perception of him as correct by his actions, by his words, by his horrible Truth Social that is failing. And, you know, he is the kind of person that is a grifter. And he is an evangelical preacher to people who believed that Celebrity Apprentice was true. And Celebrity Apprentice was not true. And Mark Burnett has tapes of him calling people every racist word in the world, telling women to get down on their knees. Mark Burnett owns the cache of all of Trump's sickness, and he refuses to release it. And I think that's a sin, because what's happening now is democracy is on trial. Whether or not we'll ever have a democratic election again, should he win the election.
Now, you know that I believe that democracy is stronger than any one person, and that Trump, frankly, doesn't have the foresight or the vision to do anything like what it would take to really attack the democracy. But I get your concerns. But you also know what this show is about, is that I believe that at the end of the day, everybody's got common concerns, which is how do we make this country stronger? And that's why I was so happy to have you and agree to be on tonight, because back then in the day when it was going on, eventually you and Barbara would make up over it. But the impact of what Trump could do was felt. Bill O'Reilly defended you back then on the O'Reilly factor in 2006, right after the Trump thing happened on The View. I want you to remember what he said.
She started it, not you. This is all fact.
She started it, I finished it.
Well, you didn't finish it because it's going to go on and on and on.
I'm pretty close.
But why don't you just
hey, Bill, let me talk.
Beat her intellectually? Why the personal stuff?
I'm beating her intellectually, Bill. She's easy to beat intellectually.
Calling her pig face, getting into her sex life,
but
all these things, they don't make. It doesn't make.
Excuse me.
It doesn't make you look good.
She's allowed to make fun by the hair. I don't care about the hair. You know, I'm totally immune to
But that makes her look bad. Don't you understand that?
Excuse me, Bill.
So I'm not going to be able to convince you to beat her intellectually and to stay out of the personal. I'm not going to be able to convince you.
Ultimately, intellectually, you know, I went to the best school. I went to the Wharton School.
That's what I'm telling you. Why do you have to talk about her girlfriend then? Just talk about how erroneous what she said.
I'm not talking about her girlfriend. I feel sorry for her girlfriend. How would you like to have to kiss Rosie?
That's what I'm talking about.
I got to tell you.
There he is.
Bill O'Reilly.
That's the future president, ladies and gentlemen.
Is here with Rosie. Let me ask you something, Bill. You guys haven't been on before together. I love you both, so it's good to have you both. You had to know, Bill, that he was not going to take that well back in 2006. You telling him you shouldn't have done it that way. He doesn't take correction well. Why did you do it?
Well, number one, Ms. O'Donnell was on the O'Reilly factor. So you got to do better research, Cuomo. We had a extensive conversation. Number two, I'm a pretty consistent guy, as you know. I don't like the invective. I don't like the personal attacks. I never have. I don't do them. And they're worse today than they were back then. And that's because of social media. People are trying desperately to get attention. So they're calling people all kinds of names, and they're throwing stuff out. A lot of it's defamatory, but you can't win if you're a famous person. Now, the reason I challenged Donald Trump back then is because I didn't think what he did helped the country, him, or anybody. I was on The View 14 times. And there was one time when it was ridiculous, and Whoopi Goldberg and Behar walked off because I said that it was inappropriate to build a mosque at the site of the terror attack on 9/11, which is absolutely true. But I don't want this country to descend into the mud. I don't. And that's why I challenge Donald Trump and will challenge anyone else who does that, including Ms. O'Donnell.
Well, Rosie comes in peace.
I totally agree, Bill. I agree with you, and I think that no matter who wins in November, this country has a lot of healing to do. We have to forgive each other for our trespasses and our misconceptions, and then try to reunite as one country, united. And that's the dangerous thing that's happening when I say, Chris, democracy is on trial. It's because without this, we're nothing as a nation. We have to get everyone back together again in some way.
Okay, but Rosie, with all due respect, you're not going to be successful saying that democracy is on trial and anybody who supports Donald Trump is a fascist. You're not. I mean, those people are going to reject you 100% because there's a lot more to it than you are presenting. There is a lot more to it.
Well,
Donald Trump presided over the country for 4 years. Wait a minute, just hear me out. Donald Trump presided over the country for 4 years, and there was no attack on democracy until January 6th. And that was a large mistake that he made. I don't believe that he was behind it. I think that if that trial ever gets up, he'll be acquitted. There's too much exculpatory evidence.
No way.
But you're not going to bring anybody together demonizing Trump and the people and the 72 million who voted for him. That's not going to happen.
All right, so look, let's hear Rosie out, though, because Rosie is, as is Bill, maybe even better, great communicator, great ability to deliver message, great feel for people. What are you trying to do, Rosie, and what's your hope?
You know, my hope is that we get to continue as a democracy in this country, that we get to have elected officials representing the people as our forefathers created. And what Donald Trump is doing is trying to become an authoritarian, a dictator, and he is the worst thing that ever happened to this nation. And there are so many examples that it's ridiculous to try to name them all. And so I forgive the people who were lied to by Mark Burnett about Donald Trump. I forgive them when they are going to see the truth about him and he's going to go to jail. Because that's where he deserves to be, and that's where any other American would be if they did what he did. And I totally disagree with you saying that he didn't have anything to do with the insurrection, that he didn't instigate it, plan it, demand it of his fans, because he did, Bill. He did.
Well, we'll see in court what is presented, and if you are correct, then we'll have another debate. But I will take a $10,000 bet right now with you, Rosie, to your favorite charity or mine, that Donald Trump will not be convicted of insurrection because he's not charged with it.
Man, that is so cheap, Bill.
10K,
that is so cheap. You cheapo.
I'm here to do it.
You cheapo. He wasn't charged with it. Hey, make a $10,000 bet that he won't be found guilty of anything in the case.
I'll make that bet. 10,000.
No, he wasn't charged with insurrection.
Guilty.
All right, you got it.
None of that. None of that.
He wasn't charged with
charges.
It. Sneaky
Anything
Bill.
he is charged with, I agree he will be guilty.
You take that bet?
We'll see. I'm not really fearful of our democracy because there isn't anybody more outspoken in this country than I am about politics and other things. And my freedom was not impeded one iota during the Trump administration. And I don't know any broadcaster's freedom who was. You still have The View on every day, pounding Trump into pudding. Nothing happens. All the working people I know were better off under Donald Trump, so there wasn't any economic consequence. So I really don't know what the hyperbole is.
That's bull.
And that's why I reject it.
That's bull. How many Americans did he kill by his COVID inaction? Let's start right there.
All right.
Are you kidding me? People were better with him? You're out of your mind.
Hold on. This is
COVID inaction. He brought Trump through a deal with the pharma companies, brought a vaccine to the nation in less than a year.
Operation Warp Speed.
Okay.
He definitely brought the vaccine. He was slow at the beginning, and then he got cold feet about the vaccine when people went anti-vax on him. That's the story that the American people have to reconcile with their vote in November. But I got to tell you, it's not just because you're both Irish.
Yeah.
I love that you were willing to come on here and have a conversation. Bill O'Reilly, you stay with me.
Always.
We're going to do the next block. Rosie O'Donnell, I love you and thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you. Thank you both. Bill, good to see you, Bill. All right.
Same.
I got to tell you, so we're going to take a quick break. But you see Bill O'Reilly, what he tried to do there with the 10 grand? And say, I'll bet you 10 grand because he knew he wasn't charged with it? That's dirty pool, man. That's dirty pool. We'll come back in 4.5 minutes with more of the big man. Reporters believe he did something wrong, but not when it comes to the New York case, Bill. This is where you only have about 1 in 3 voters believe that he did something illegal. Another third says unethical, but not illegal. And then 14% say nothing wrong. Those are the always for Trump. What do you make of this New York case, and do you think he gets acquitted?
Okay, first of all, it wasn't dirty pool.
Dirty pool.
Rosie O'Donnell 10 grand.
Dirty pool.
When she didn't know that Trump had not been charged with insurrection. Because 10 grand to the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization on Long Island, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
So
it's a good thing. But hold on a second.
I'm disputing you there.
Oh, yeah, no.
Now,
hold on. No. You said, I'll bet you 10 grand he doesn't get convicted of insurrection, but he wasn't charged with insurrection. If you want to just go 10 grand on the outcome of the trial, now that's a real wager. I love the Boys and Girls Club. Don't get me wrong. I've donated to them in your name before. I'm just saying. dirty pool.
Her statement was clearly, when you look at the tape, you'll hear it, that he was behind the January 6th thing. That's insurrection. So you name it, whatever you name it. That is not going to be proved beyond any reason.
I agree. He's also not charged.
Let's get on to the Trump trial.
Go ahead.
Number one, this poll is foolish because people have not seen discovery. They don't know what happened in this case. All right? So they're basically given an opinion based on ignorance. All of them, one way or another. Number two, the reason they are giving that opinion is because the first case, all right, civil case with that E. Jean Carroll, she's awarded $80 million. Any fair-minded person knows that's insane, and it could only happen in New York. And in the second case, the real estate transaction, Trump, was fined almost $500 million. Everybody in the world knows that this is not justice, that this is New York vendetta. So they're applying those first two cases to this case. Now, if you study this case, it never would have been brought in, probably only outside of California and perhaps D.C. No one would have brought it, because the genesis of the case is a woman demanding money not to talk about a consensual alleged affair. Now, you can slap whatever adjective you want on demanding money for that. So if there is no crime, nothing. Now, I don't know what Donald Trump did or did not do. I'm not his lawyer. But the fact that he's got to sit there in the middle of a presidential campaign does not help the country. Nobody believes he can get a fair trial in New York City. I certainly don't. The judge is an activist Democrat. Come on, this is just a cliche alert kangaroo court.
The problem he has, look, I think it's a weak case. I think there's a good chance that it gets hung by the jury. I believe in New Yorkers. I think that they can do a fair job. They're certainly having a scrutinizing process. His problem is Michael Cohen, having told everybody that this was the deal that he made for Trump, and he did it to help keep it quiet for the campaign.
All right, look, Cuomo, you don't know what was said, and I don't know what's said. It's not the jury I'm worried about.
I do know what was said.
It's Marchand, the judge.
Right.
The judge, look, the judge is in charge of what gets overruled, what gets sustained, what is presented.
Right.
Marchand is already bringing in another woman who wanted money, not to talk about a consensual situation. Why? Why? That other woman is not attached to Stormy Daniels. But, and most other judges would have said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay on this case. So there's no way on earth in front of this judge that Donald Trump gets a fair trial, period.
Well, if he doesn't, then it'll be easy to appeal it. But I think that there's a better chance that they get a hung jury than that he gets convicted. That's what I think is going to be coming.
I'm not going to guess at it, because I haven't seen discovery. I haven't seen cross-examination. I'm not going to guess at it. But I know 100%, all right, he cannot get a fair trial in New York City. And why wasn't it moved to Long Island or Westchester or Dutchess County? Why? Okay? It's easy to do. It should have been done. It's just another in a long line of injustice.
Well, don't you want to see the case first before you call it injustice?
No. I already know it's injustice based upon who the players are in the case. I know what Ms. Daniels wanted. She wanted money to shut up. All right? I know that. I know who the judge is. So I don't need to see this. I know it's not fair, and I know if I were Trump, I think I would just be worse than he is as far as going out there and saying, where do we live? Is this Moscow now? Anyway, go ahead. What's next?
You tell me.
All right. The Columbia University anti-Semitism thing is interesting. So the president of Columbia goes up and testifies before Congress, and as usual, the Congress people don't know what to ask her. Of course she's going to say she's not anti-Semitic. Of course she's going to say she condemns anti-Semitism. What you say there is, Madam, How could your faculty at Columbia University be so radicalized? How is that possible? And bring in 20 professors who are anti-Semitic and who have posted anti-Semitic rantings. That's what you do. And then you say, madam, do you have any conservative professors on your faculty? Because I don't know of any. And if you did, they would be scorned. So what kind of an operation are you running here? Okay? That's how you get at this. But these Congress people, I mean, it's crazy. All they want to do is grandstand. Mm-hmm. That's all they want to do. They don't want to get to the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is that higher education in America is like the justice system. It has fallen apart.
Well, I do think at the same time, there is something very sanitizing about the light of transparency on it. People have had their eyes opened about what is tolerated, what is not tolerated, but more importantly, what the rationales are. Seeing that Harvard head who got removed come up and bungle the way she did, even though that she was counseled by lawyers, it's so obvious that they never even considered if what they were allowing was wrong. And you saw that with the Columbia University lady also. As a journalist and an American, don't you want to know how these radical people got hired in the first place? Sure.
Don't you want to know that?
Sure, I just don't expect them to tell us.
Yeah, but
I think they'll just defend.
You can bring in the roster.
Right.
And say, explain this, madam. And if she can't explain it, then she's got to go. Right?
Right. They'll say, well, look, you know what she's going to say. Same thing the Harvard lady did, the same thing the Penn lady did, which is, we have diversity of opinion here. We don't get into why they say what they say. That's right. Well,
and where are those two ladies?
They went down the chute.
They're not there anymore.
Yep, they went down the chute.
Okay.
And it's interesting.
Dusty is saying we got to go. I'm going to send you a present, Cuomo.
All right.
It's a mug, a beautiful Made in America mug that says, not woke. And it's available now for everybody on BillO'Reilly.com.
Not
You're
woke.
going to get that mug shortly, and I want you to use it on the set next time I'm on.
Done. Just for you, Bill. As long as it doesn't have a picture of your face on it. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. I love you, Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for being on. So when we come back, I have Representative Greg Meeks, very, very important voice in the Democratic Party in Congress. He says, I'm only going to vote, if I have it right, and he can correct me when he comes back, one bill. Ukraine and Israel, just one bill, not separate bills. He says it's got to be on one bill. I don't understand. I feel like you got to take what you can get in this Congress right now. Why put all that pressure on one? You may wind up getting none. He'll make his case to you next.
Package that we should be taking up. The only package that I will support is the package that was passed in a bipartisan way in the Senate. One bill, nothing else.
New York Democratic Congressman Gregory Meeks joins us now. It's good to have you, sir. Thank you.
Good to see you, Chris.
All right, so just one simple proposition. Johnson couldn't get the votes for the bundled bill, so he's breaking it apart. The president has said he's okay with it. The language, the money seems to be the same. Why not get something versus nothing?
Well, what has to happen here is the bill for Ukrainian aid, Israel aid, Taiwanese aid, and humanitarian aid will all still be, it will vote separately, put together in a rule, and when it goes over to the Senate again, it will be one. It won't be, separate when it goes into the city. You're going to package it, and it goes over as one. That's the deal, because each one of our allies, Ukraine needs weapons and ammunition now. Mm-hmm. We can see what took place over the weekend. Israel needs what it needs now. Mm-hmm. Taiwan needs what it needs now, and we need to have humanitarian aid for those in Gaza and people around the world. Good. We can't wait. And the easiest thing would have been to just pass the bipartisan bill that the Senate passed. 70 members of the Senate voted for it.
Now, the Republican House doesn't want to be on the record the same way on those different votes. They're looking to cover themselves with different outcomes on different votes.
Well, but certain folks, there was a lot of my colleagues that on the Republican side that stated to Zelensky, that stated to Israel, that we will make sure you have what you need. By waiting, we're stalling. That's the quickest way to get to our allies what they need. We could have had this bill to the president on the president's desk today or tomorrow. Now we're going to vote if, in fact, because it's not all together yet, we're still negotiating it. If it's right, we won't be able to complete it until Saturday, which means it won't hopefully get to the president by Monday. And each day and each hour is very important, especially for Ukraine.
Right. But again, this is the only way it was going to get done. So I'm glad that you're okay with the separate votes on the House side, then bundle it up for the Senate. Hopefully they don't have the same problem on that side. We haven't heard that they do. So at least something gets done. I appreciate the accommodation. To be honest with you, there are a lot of leaders that wouldn't have done it, given the state of play right now. Let me ask you a question. It's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I think it's going to matter more and more to the American people. Have you guys done any talking amongst yourselves about what's happening with insurance rates in this country right now? It's starting to pop state by state. They're blaming it on environmental disasters, but it seems like they're making a move, that industry, to squeeze families, and there's few things that hurt more than insurance bills. Has that gotten under your radar yet?
It has not to the degree that you're talking about. I mean, we do all starting to hold hearings on the Financial Services Committee, bringing insurance companies forward, asking those questions in dialogue. But if you're asking, is there any bills or any proposal that's on the ground right now? No, there is not.
That's going to be a big one. It's going to get bigger and bigger as we go out through the summer and we start seeing these storms coming into the fall and how many claims they're not paying and how many of them are going belly up, how much are coming together. Congressman Gregory Meeks, you are always welcome on this show to make the case. I appreciate you for being here. I need more Meeks in my life.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Dan Abrams starts right now.